Hello traders, today is the 4th of May 2020. Today is a Monday. Welcome to my trading recap video. What you're looking at is the Jigsaw Day Trader platform. This is all trading on order flow. There's no charts, no indicators, nothing like that. It's just watching the price action and responding accordingly. From right to left is you have the Ultra Bond all the way on the left. Second to left is the 30-year symbol ZB. All the way in the middle is the symbol ZF, which is the 5-year. Second to the right is the 10-year T-note, symbol ZN. And then all the way on the right is the E-mini S&P, which is symbol ES. So if you hear me say ES or ZN or ZB, just referring to the symbol for the futures product. Very slow action today coming into the overnight. I could see that just kind of went sideways overnight. I'll bring up a chart here and you can see right as pit opened, we basically just sold off immediately. Kind of bounced up a little bit to what would be considered resistance and then sold down again. So this first trade, coming into this first trade here, is basically kind of almost like a fade trade in the sense that jumped into it. I saw that buyers kind of started to respond and I wasn't sure if they were done yet. So that's kind of why we had some, yesterday's low was there. It looked like it was kind of extended. We had punched through obviously the overnight low quite a bit. We printed a ton of volume, a little bit of back and forth, and then they started to continuation push lower. And this was a fade trade, like I said. So I put my stop pretty tight because if I was going to get run over, I wanted to be out of this thing pretty quickly so I could kind of reassess what was happening. And that turned out to be kind of a fatal error in my, because I think 26 ended up being the low of the day. I can kind of take a look here really quickly while I have the, yeah, we actually ticked down into 26 or 25 half very, very briefly, but basically 26 was the low of the day. So all in all, if you look at kind of what happened today from a trading holistic recap, and I'll kind of go through each one of them, but I bought the bottom 3 times, I think, today. And ended up making only like 4 ticks or something like that. So it wasn't really good as far as I felt a little rusty. A little bit rusty. I kind of was burned out last week, didn't trade all that much. Have a couple of videos, but a couple mornings I woke up and I just saw that it was other time frame, obviously other time frame participants, and I just kind of, it's a little bit different from what we've been seeing lately where we have a nice little overnight profile, definitely trader's paradise. This was more of a kind of month-end stuff happening and a lot of people just kind of resizing their positions, so I just didn't really want to have anything to do with that. So again, this first trade, had my stop on there pretty tight because I felt like if I was going to get run over, I wanted to have a fresh look at it again. I don't know if I do anything different, to be honest. I mean, the Ultra Bond and the 30 were really, really aggressive in their selling. I think the only thing I might do differently in this is just probably just be a little bit more patient because you have that opportunity on like the 30-year. And I might have even tried to catch a few bounces in the 30-year before as the 10 years kind of setting itself up. The other thing I kind of missed too is that normally the initial move during the pit session will really give away what the morning session is going to be. So if there's this huge move down like we saw in the chart, you could see in that 5-minute chart that there was this, within this span of less than 10 minutes they had driven this thing all the way down the profile. And you can kind of expect a little bit of continuation there. So if I come up to the screen a little bit earlier, I could have sold down the move back up to the overnight low and had a pretty good continuation trade. So I think that's something always to keep an eye on in the mornings. If you do see that big push one way or the other at the start of the pit session, that will kind of take some time to resolve itself. And by taking some time, I mean like a couple hours. until the European close when things normally turn around and kind of move in the other direction, which is basically, yeah, right at, we got the turn between 7 and 8 this morning. So that's basically the same time they kind of turn this thing every day. Europeans will drive it down or push it up, and then they'd have to cover going into the close, and that's what drives it going back the other way. So yeah, I had a couple opportunities to scratch this trade. Didn't take it. Felt like buyers were present. They were definitely present. It just sellers took over for a second, enough to kind of stop me out. But I'll move forward till the kind of the end of this trade, and basically I just kind of get run over for a hot second. But like I said, 25.5 is the low of the day. So I ended up buying this 2 more times, which is what you'll see, and I get caught up in the tick drama. But we'll get to that part. So this trade actually goes in my favor. Until it finally kind of blows down through me. It didn't help that the ES basically was just making new highs, and that's kind of puts too much pressure on these guys to sell this thing down. You have the algos doing everything. So then not even, I get run over less than a minute later. I'm back in this thing at 26. 2 minutes later, maybe. So this is kind of the same thing. I just kind of figured I had my stop was too tight. Everybody else is buying this thing back up. You see a nice little profile step developing over in the even the Ultra Bond and the 30-year, all the way the 2 products on the left. The 5-year kind of had me worried a little bit, but this is the low's already been put in for the day, so I could have even had this at 26 if I wanted it. But I think I pulled like 2 ticks out of this one. Fast forward it. So I ended up getting 3 ticks out of this. I think there was some size that came in. I probably could have had 1 more tick, and then I just figured the same thing. I just let it fall back in and buy it again. And on this 3rd time, I'll fast forward to the 3rd trade. You could see the enormous profile step that started to develop. And when these things become so obvious, like if we had traded all the way up to like 31 or 31.5 and then come back down, then I might not have just taken this trade so blatantly. But the fact that we only popped up like 2 or 3 ticks, I felt like it was still kind of a fresh step, because they get kind of stale. Like the people that set up the step, all those buyers that absorbed all the selling there, they kind of unwind their positions the farther up they get. So if it only goes up 1 or 2 ticks or 3 ticks, that's not enough for them. They want this thing to, they want to drive it all the way up and then start to unwind their positions. So I kind of feel like that, it stays fresh in that regard if it doesn't go too far. And this is the trade where I just get totally shooken out of it, and I'm kicking myself because this could have been a really, really good trade. And I just get too caught up in the tick drama. It's basically all that happens. This is a no-brainer trade. Like, I just moved my target up, and I could have very easily hit that target, no problem, if I would have just hung in there. Even more than that, I think we get all the way up past the overnight low, if I recall. I'll kind of fast forward to where I cover this thing, and you can see kind of what happened. Waves is basically where we got rejected previously. Just trying to preserve profits, I guess. But if you look at a 5-minute chart, you could have just walked this thing all the way up the chart. Ultimately, we got up into 2, but this thing, you could have easily just walked this up the hill and got stopped out at 05. So that would have been a pretty little trade, 750. So I got to work on that. That's one of the things I write down what I want to work on for the day, and then I try to put it in front of me, but often I write it down and I just throw it aside, and I get so focused on what's happening that I just kind of get shooken out of shit like this. This happens all the time. So I'll go ahead and fast forward, and we will see when kind of what happens. But this thing goes back and forth quite a bit. I catch the majority of this thing, but I think I end up breaking up my lot, and right at like 28.5 was kind of where resistance. If this thing was going to continue to be like a trend day, that's where you definitely would have want to pulled something off. This is kind of where I get shooken out though. I think even in the back of my head, I'm like, I should just give this more time, give it some room, because I don't think it ever got back below 27.5. It ends up just blowing through. There's like a sweep that comes through and just blows it all the way up through like 29.5, 30. I think I even leave that out. It happens right after I cover my position, of course. But I'm still sitting here thinking about it. Broken up the lot. I think I do get filled at 28.5 on half of it. It was a really difficult read today, I'll tell you that. Like, you had a lot of algo behavior from what I could tell, simply because you could see the bids and offers responding from just kind of flickering around, and they're responding from what's going on in the ES, like little volume pushes here and there. And the 30-year would fall in a tick, and then the 10-year, the bid would just disappear and then pop right back on. It's just really difficult. It makes it for a really tough read from an order flow perspective. So you just kind of have to sit back and say, okay, I'm hoping the low is in for the day, and just kind of go with it. It made a tough read today. Basically, I think what happens here is I do get filled at 28.5. I get shooken out at 28, and it makes a $700 trade turn into a $200 trade. So basically, I bought 27, I bought 26.5 twice, 4 ticks on the day. And then I got an accidental tick from earlier in the morning, but I'm not going to count that one really. So you can see I just moved the stop up. I don't want this thing to push down too far. So I got filled on a half lot. Still got the 2 lot rocking. And I think this comes back a little bit, and I end up just ticking out of it. And then I just say, screw it. I don't want this thing to stack up on me, so I just tick out of it, and then I'll let this kind of play a little bit here, but you'll see a sweep come through. And it's not even, 8:07. It wasn't even like a minute, less than a minute later. So big order comes through, pushes up 2 ticks right through that resistance point. It's right after I cover. Total bummer, because right there you're just golden. You know it's going to go all the way up to that profile step at 31.5, 31 at least. So that really sucks. Yeah, I end up trying to take 31 down because we did trade up to the overnight low. So I figured this will just settle into a range for the rest of the day. You got the ES bidding up quite a bit. And I'll kind of fast forward this, but this is just basically, it stalled out there at 31.5, 30. I'm just kind of playing that profile step in the gap there. It starts to push through me a little bit, and I just said, you know what? And I'll fast forward through a lot of this. It's just a tough read today. There wasn't really a direction one way or the other. It just seems like it was just a really tough read. couldn't get a good read. There was nobody was really in charge. There was no, buyers weren't in charge, sellers weren't in charge. It was just sort of, and this is kind of what happens in the middle of the profile. So then my last trade, I think is the last trade. Yeah, this is the last trade. So it comes up to 0.5 and 1. You see this huge profile step developing here at 1. So it looked like it was going to take off on me, and I ended up paying up a ton for this. Like sucker. Total sucker. I paid up like 3 ticks. And then of course immediately it just comes back on me. So basically trades all the way back up to 1. I could have had the entry that I wanted. I mean, I paid up three whole ticks on this thing. It just went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I got to let it trade out. I mean, I got to let this thing come all the way back up because that's where I'm wrong. That's where, it's your exit determines your entry, really. And I screwed up because I paid up so much for this, but it looked like they were like just going to drive this thing down, like you've seen so many times in the past. Like sellers were just finally going to start taking control of this thing and just start driving it down. But that obviously didn't happen because the move ended right there and immediately just worked itself against me. Traded all the way back up to 1. Luckily, we got back down to my entry, and I was able just to work a scratch out of this thing. I tried to pull a tick out, but that wasn't going to happen. After, when you're wrong on a trade and it goes against you and you know you're wrong and you're basically just praying for a bailout, you shouldn't try to make money on that, in my opinion, because that just reinforces bad behavior. But you can see we just filled out this complete profile. As that big profile step was here at 1, we filled out all this in between all that, just going back and forth. And 1 turned into a point of control. So it was just really painful. I sat in that trade for like an hour. So that was it for today. I'm trying to come back a little bit stronger tomorrow, but that's all we got for today. So questions, comments, everything's welcome. Hope everybody's trading well and staying healthy out there. Catch you tomorrow.